Hello and welcome to a very special episode of TRB Collectibles. My name's Tom and I will be your guide as we fly into New York City. Now I call New York City home. It's made up of 5 different boroughs: Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Staten Island, and the Bronx. The large landmass that you see right now is Brooklyn. Connecting down towards the bottom of the window via the Brooklyn Bridge, that very first bridge, is the tip of the island of Manhattan. You're also going to notice One World Trade Center. As we head up the Hudson River, I'm going to point out some of its very famous landmarks. If you call this place home, welcome home. And if you have visited here or have never been before, I hope you enjoy the view. I'd like to point out my home borough. Across the East River, you're going to notice Queens. It's where we're going to eventually land, but that's where I was born and raised and grew up. As we continue up the Hudson, you're going to see a circular building in the center of your screen. That's the famous Madison Square Garden. A couple blocks over, towards the end of the wing, you're going to notice the Empire State Building, and just to the left of that, the Chrysler Building. At the bottom of your screen, you're going to see the Intrepid. It's a former decommissioned aircraft carrier that's now a museum. If you haven't seen it already and have been anticipating it, I think the most exciting thing about New York City is the beautiful and iconic Central Park. You could always question how you wouldn't be able to have a front yard or a backyard here, and that you couldn't live in a concrete jungle. To us, this is our backyard, and it has the most wonderful experiences you could ever imagine. I think it's the best backyard there is. Also, putting size into perspective, you don't realize how large it actually is until you get to fly over it. If you are a huge fan of Major League Baseball, well, do I have a stadium for you. We are currently heading out of Manhattan and into the Bronx, and this is where the Bronx Bombers live. Yep, I'm referring to the Yankees, and Yankee Stadium, just right under the wing. Now, if you're a Met fan, I could see how you wouldn't think that this is the most iconic stadium that there is in New York City. Because in my home borough of Queens, we have Citi Field, and that's home of the New York Mets. If you've ever heard the term Subway Series, whenever the Mets and the Yankees are playing one another, it literally means what it says. Because as a fan or a player, if you wanted to, you could take a train from Citi Field all the way to Yankee Stadium and see either the Mets or the Yankees play a game. And it's quite fun to do so. So as we continue up into the Bronx, what we're going to do is begin to bank right. Because at the angle at which LaGuardia in Queens has its runways, depending on where you're coming from, is how the planes have to fly into New York City. Also depending on the time of year and wind conditions, which is kind of fun. So it'll always change your viewpoint on how you approach New York City and what you get to see. I'd like you to keep your viewpoint at the top of your screen, because you're about to see where we just flew in from. The tip of Manhattan through Central Park, all the way up through the Bronx, and now further up the state, following the Hudson River on the right-hand side. Just to the right of that landmass, well, that's the state of New Jersey. On the other side of the island of Manhattan, there's the East River. And just in the distance, that landmass right there is where we're going to be landing today, in the borough of Queens. My home borough, home of 2 airports, JFK and LaGuardia. Today, we're going to be landing at LaGuardia. Growing up in New York City, to be very honest, I was never bored. I didn't live the movie or the television life where I was going to Broadway shows every single day, but I did go, and it was a treat when we did. I think some of the best stuff in New York City is free. The local concerts, the people who perform in the subways. Yes, it might be something fun to see on TikTok, but when you see it in person, it's somebody really trying and they're giving you their all. It's the best. New York City is filled with arts and culture, and it's something you can't do in a week. It's something that takes forever and a lifetime to see. It's a wonderful place to be. It's a wonderful place to grow up, and I am proud to call it my home. Let's not even get started on the food. That's just world class because the world has brought us the best from their local pantry. I want to hear from you what your favorite thing in New York City when you visited was. Please tell me in the comments down below. I'd love to hear it. And if you've never been to New York City before, I want to hear what you aspire to see, what you want to eat, and what you want to do. And to those that are finally watching that are from New York City, being a fellow New Yorker myself, I want to hear some of your favorite indie local stuff. Please, for sure, share with me down below in the comments. Something interesting that I wanted to point out, that I always find fun, that a lot of people don't know, that JFK is our newer of our two airports, and newer meaning that it was built a very long time ago, but newer in the sense that LaGuardia is much older. And LaGuardia used to accommodate smaller aircraft that needed less runway distance, so we have shorter runways at LaGuardia than we do at JFK. And based on size and space of what we need in New York City, it's not easy to extend a runway. So, when you fly into LaGuardia and you land, rather than using the distance to slow down the aircraft, the pilots have to throw the thrusters in full reverse when you land at LaGuardia because there's not enough distance to stop the actual aircraft. Enjoy! Welcome to New York City. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to click that like button. And if you have some extra time, check out some of these other videos. Thanks!